I first set up in business just over 10 years ago as a Google Ads consultant. And one of the things that I did to attract clients was I offered a lead magnet, a free PDF guide on my website called How to Waste £1,000 on Google Ads in No Time Flat. When people registered for that lead magnet, I added them to an email sequence in Aweber, which was my email marketing platform. And I sent them one email a day for 14 days. And over those 14 days, I told stories. I told them personal stories about me, how I got into Google Ads, why I got into Google Ads, some tricks and tips of things that I had found particularly helpful for saving money and putting your interests ahead of Google's interests. But first and foremost, that sequence told my story. It told personal stories. I noticed at the time that I had two distinct types of client leads. The first was prospects who hadn't read my emails, hadn't necessarily downloaded the lead magnet. They just found me online. They just found my website. Maybe they'd even been referred to me by someone else, by a networking partner, for instance. But they didn't yet trust me. They really wanted to know what my hourly rate was, how much I charged. Often they weren't the best clients to work with. When I think back to some of my more tricky clients, let's say, they all came from that group. They were all the people who had found me online. They hadn't, taken the time to get to know me, to read the email sequence. On the other hand, my second group of prospects was people who had found me online. They'd registered for the lead magnet. They'd been through the email sequence. They may not have read every email, but they'd read most of the emails, or they'd read a good chunk of the emails. And at some point through the series, because there was a consistent call to action throughout the emails to, entice people. If you're ready for help with your Google Ads, contact me. And what I found was that if people had responded to one of those emails, and I could see that they'd responded from those emails because they just replied to the email. So I could see by the reply that which email they'd responded to. Those clients were a night and day experience from a sales perspective. They didn't ask the same questions. They weren't asking me immediately what my hourly rate was. They weren't asking me for references. They weren't asking me about track records because the email sequence had already communicated that. And in many respects, creating a process to systematize that email sequence, and for people who sell based on trust, for people who sell based on expertise, if you've got leads coming in, if you've got inquiries coming in, but the quality of your sales leads can fluctuate. Some people don't necessarily trust you yet. Some people don't understand your unique value. How do we build trust quickly, efficiently, authentically, and affordably? That's really the question at the heart of my work. Today's episode of the Story Selling Podcast is going to examine the latest version of this email sequence, which I call the Lead Incubator. So the idea behind the Lead Incubator is that the Lead Incubator sits immediately after people first opt into your world. So whether that's they fill in a form on your website, whether that's they first contact you for the first time, whether they're introduced via referral, you don't immediately push them into a sales process. First of all, you add them to the Lead Incubator sequence. So you chuck all of your leads into the Lead Incubator. The Lead Incubator is designed to run for 12 days. You might test different variations of this. So in my Aweber sequence, that ran for 14 days. But actually, I found that some people contacted me partway through the sequence. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the actual length of the sequence itself. But it's a period of time. It's a period of incubation time between someone first coming across you and someone really being ready to trust you and and feel confident that you are the solution to the problem that they're experiencing and feel like they want to move ahead with a sales conversation. So that's what this episode of the podcast is going to look at. As always, we're going to cover 3 ideas and a bonus idea because there was a fourth idea which I couldn't really leave out. So the 3 main ideas that we're going to cover are retention, progression, and directness. The bonus idea then, which I think I'm also going to do a separate podcast episode on, is optimization, is optimizing your lead incubator sequence and testing, if you have version A and version B, and if you put 100 people through each version, perhaps version A has 7 emails, perhaps version B has 14 emails or 30 emails. Which one generates you the most clients? So that's what we're going to talk about in optimization. So let's jump in and have a look at the first idea. I believe attention is the major currency of marketing. There's a lot of talk, isn't there, about how attention is hard to get, hard to keep, and is more fragmented across multiple channels. About how your ideal client is maybe spending less of their time looking at one particular channel, which maybe used to be email. Maybe you're spending more time on social. I don't actually know how true this is. What is definitely true is that people are less forthcoming with their permission. People are more wary up front. I don't know if this is just in marketing in particular. I sometimes resent the fact that I chose marketing as an industry to work in, because in some respects it's an industry of charlatans. But I think it's true across all industries that I've seen across my work is that attracting attention isn't easy, but it is doable. You've got to be laser focused on the problem that you're helping people solve. But once you've got their attention, the use case for this then is that there's an education gap. There's an education gap between where people discover you and the point at which they need to get to have a sales conversation. It might not be a big gap, but the use case for this is that, you find it very hard to distill what you do into an elevator pitch. Everyone's always asking me, when I go to business trainings, what's the elevator pitch? How do I condense what I do into a 30-second pitch? And in some respects, I've always struggled with this, because I've always felt that I've never really done myself justice. And actually, all you can really do in the elevator pitch is give people a snippet that's going to evoke some curiosity for the right person. But it might be that for the person who really needs your services, needs your help, that the elevator pitch is just a starting point in the customer journey. And actually, there's going to be a period of education that goes from that initial contact, but before the first sales call, so that when they get on the first sales call, you're not answering questions that could have been established through your marketing. So that's probably the first criteria as a business use case. So, you've got leads coming in. You're not going from a standing start. I do believe that marketing in many respects is amplification of something that is already in flow. You need something that's in flow to begin with. You need some degree of leads coming in. You can't amplify nothing. But what you're finding is that leads are coming in and they're not being consistently followed up. And maybe the emails that go out, if you send any emails, assuming the email is one of your primary follow-up media, the emails aren't consistent. Not everyone who signs up receives the same emails, or maybe, perhaps there's a significant difference between the digital version of you and the digital communications that people receive and the experience that people have in person. Perhaps in person you get on really well with clients. You can build rapport. You're good face-to-face. But you find it hard converting that version of you into emails. And actually, in order for a client to sign up to your services, they do really need to feel like they know, like, and trust you. You can't really do that in an elevator pitch. It's going to take a bit of time. Consequently, as well, the problem that you solve is big enough for people to invest a bit of their attention in you. So yes, attention is scarce. Yes, attention is hard to get. But people are going to give you some of their attention because the problem that you solve is big enough and pressing enough for them to warrant spending some attention. Ultimately, the goal with this is to eliminate poor quality sales meetings. And actually what we're doing is we're eliminating poor quality sales meetings by filtering out people who, you really shouldn't be meeting, because they're not going to resonate with your story. They're not going to resonate with your, if you're expressing the true essence of your purpose and yourself in the initial emails that go out, and you're also really demonstrating a deep understanding of the problem that they're facing and how you can solve it and what the insight is that they're missing. The people who don't have that problem, or the people for whom your values do not resonate with, they're just not going to respond. They're going to unsubscribe, or they're going to go through the sequence without opening many emails, and they'll pass on. And that's fine. That's the whole point of this sequence. So the question really at the heart of my work, and the question behind the Lead Incubator for the last 11 years, the question really is, how can we build trust as quickly as possible, as authentically as possible, in a manner that convinces but doesn't broadcast neediness? If you sell boast and expertise, you can't be seen as needing clients. This is the realm of attraction. This is positioning you at the top of the mountain. You're the person that people go to seek solutions to big problems. That's what we're doing here. We're not trying to amplify needy messages. We're trying to attract people who you can help, who have the money to spend, and really want to make a change. The second idea I want to talk about is progression. So throughout the Lead Incubator sequence, and something that I think was missing back when I sent the 14 emails through Aweber to promote my Google Ads service, there wasn't really any progression throughout the series. I really just told a selection of stories, picked a little bit at random based on what came to mind. And you know what? It still worked. It still worked because people resonated with the stories. They learned to trust me to a degree, or at least enough of them did to respond to the emails. But what I found since is that there's actually a structure you can follow that leverages on the lessons of great literature. And if we analyze great literature, most plays, even going back to the ancient Greeks, most plays had 3 acts. And the 3 acts represent a beginning, a revision, and an end. And you can leverage the 3 acts across your Lead Incubator sequence. So the reason that I suggest as a starting point that you write 12 emails is because you have 4 emails in each act. And the reason you have 4 emails is because, on a working assumption, not every person is going to read every email. So yes, you could really cut the Lead Incubator down and just have, just as a bare bones, have 4 emails. 1 email in each act and a call to action email at the end. It could be a 4-day sequence. That's a test that you could run. The reason I've settled on 12 emails, I think, is because it allows a bit of progression. It allows a bit of nuance in the stories that you tell. And the 3 acts that I suggest that you follow. So in Act 1, what we're doing is we're demonstrating your understanding of the problem. Because it's the problem, going back to attention, it's the problem that's going to get people's attention. And showing that you've faced the problem that they face and that you understand it better than they do, that's going to establish a groundwork of trust. So the first 4 emails are all about showing that you understand the problem, showing a degree of empathy with the person who has just subscribed to your emails. The second act then is the revision. And in the revision, which is sometimes what I call the story spine, which is the middle of the story, that's demonstrating how your understanding of your topic has changed. And consequently, what the main insights are that you've learned into your topic, because often it's shining the light of insight on these things. It's showing the reader what the key thing is that they need to understand that they might have missed and that you can help them with. It's showing them how you haven't just, dreamt up your solution overnight, that your solution has come from the school of hard knocks. If you're at all like my clients, you've been to the school of hard knocks. You've learned things the hard way. So it's showcasing that. It's showing the depth of your expertise by some of the things that you got wrong and some of the lessons that you've learned that are going to be directly useful to your ideal clients reading the series. In the third act, then, we're going to move towards your solution, present the resolution, showcase your vision for the future, showcase the transformation that you provide to your clients. What does it look like after working with you? A lot of marketing jumps straight to the resolution in terms of showing what is possible by working with you. But the reason that this has to come last is because if you jump straight to the resolution, it's not from a basis of trust. You haven't nurtured their attention by, if you jump straight to the resolution, you haven't nurtured their attention by showing how you deeply understand the problem, and you haven't given them any insight into your depth of expertise in the middle, where you got things wrong. But in the final part of in the third act of the Lead Incubator, we do want to paint a picture of what it's like after working with you. So that's the 3 acts, and that's the structure that you follow. And I've chosen, 4 emails in each act as a starting point. In some respects, that's kind of arbitrary. It's a rule of thumb. And the problem with rules of thumb is that everyone has different sized thumbs, and the right number of emails for me might not be the right number of emails for you. And it depends a little bit on your list and your offer. And for the people that you serve, it depends how aware they are of the problem at hand and your solution to it. If they're already quite aware, then you probably need fewer emails. If they're not very aware and they need more educating, in air quotes, then you probably need more emails. And it's up to you to kind of test and determine what the right number of emails is. In the Lead Incubator sequence, in terms of frequency, I think it's very important to send 1 email a day. And the reason I recommend this is because it forces people to decide whether or not you're right for them. It forces people to decide whether or not, if you send 4 emails at the start of the sequence talking about the depth of the problem at hand, if they don't think they have that problem, they're not going to proceed any further. If you're just sending 1 email a week or 1 email every 3 days, it might be ultimately that for the people who've been on your list for a while, you just send a weekly email, or you just send an email every few days. That's like the back pasture. But for new people coming in, we want them to decide, are they in the right place to make the change that they want to make? And are you the right person to help? Because if they decide no, you don't want them on your list. All that's doing is bloating your email list size. If anything, it's a false metric, because it makes you look like you have more active prospects on your email list, whereas actually, if they're not ever going to buy, then you don't want them on the list. You only want people on your email list who either are actively interested or might be interested one day. So you've got the waiting market and the buying market, but you definitely don't want the non-buying market. So send 1 email every day. I think self-service is also an option. Something I've done for clients and something I've done in some previous versions of my own sequence is I've had a link at the bottom where, if you read an email, say if you read the email for day 6 and you want to receive day 7 straight away, you can click a button and through the powers of marketing automation, it will send you day 7 straight away. If that sounds a bit technical, there's other less technical ways of doing it. But you can add this self-service option. Multimedia is also an option. So for each email that you send, there might be a video. sometimes I encourage clients who like to talk about the mechanics of what they do a lot. Sometimes I encourage them to just have a story-based approach in the email, but then have a more detailed video. So for the people who want to come deeper about that day's topic, then they can click through and watch a YouTube video where you're talking to camera and you're going through it more in depth. So you can add a multimedia option. The other thing I've done with my Lead Incubator sequence is I've converted the full sequence into a book and self-published that book on Amazon. So it's now a paperback book. So, I would start off with email, but as always, this is never just about email. And we always want to be thinking about how can we leverage what we're doing from one channel into another. Because some people will pay attention to your emails. Some people will prefer video. Some people probably won't read any emails, but they might read a book if you send it to them. And as long as they read that and they decide that they trust you, they know, like, and trust you, and they want to get in touch, then, that's still the outcome that you need. The third idea I want to talk about is directness. Because in the Lead Incubator sequence, perhaps compared to some of the other storytelling work that I teach, if you go and read my simple storytelling book, I talk about a structure called the open sandwich structure, where if you're writing an email, you might go straight into the story. So the story is like the filling in the sandwich. Then the content or the sales piece is like the bread. And the reason that often works is because the story draws people in. It opens with the drama. It pulls people into the action. Often in your Lead Incubator sequence, we're not doing that so much. Often we're following the closed sandwich structure. So the closed sandwich structure is bread, filling, bread, where bread is content. So you have a paragraph of content up front, which kind of tells the reader where you're going with the story. So you tell them what you're about to tell them, then you have a story illustrating that example, and then you have some content at the end of the email. So in the Lead Incubator sequence, perhaps compared to some of the blog posts or nurture emails or ongoing communications that you send out, we are being quite direct. We are being quite forward in terms of making it very obvious to the reader what you're going to tell them, how this relates to the problem that you solve, and what the next step is. Which means that you've got some options for your placements of call to action. There's a few options here. Option one, and perhaps in some respects my default option, is to place your call to action at the bottom of every email in the Lead Incubator series. In other words, you kind of drip it throughout the series, so that because we're assuming that not everyone is going to read every email, people might dip in and out, but there's always a clear and consistent next step. And it's not a pushy call to action. It's a door at the bottom of your emails that people can push when they're ready. So that's probably option one, and that's probably my default go-to. Option two is to keep the call to action out of the emails until the end of the sequence, and then have a big call to action at the end. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. He's got a book called it's going to draw a blank on it now. Jab, jab. Yeah, I'll look it up. But the idea is that you, rather than having this kind of slow drip of requests of, book a call, book a call, book a call, you keep all of that out of the emails. You just concentrate on educating, building trust, and then you have a dedicated email or 2 emails or 3 emails at the end of the sequence. Then maybe have some time pressure. Perhaps you emphasize that you only work within a limited number of clients. You've got a limited number of slots. There's some time pressure at the end, but you just focus the offer at the end of the sequence. Another thing to note is that if you follow option 2, then by placing the offer at the end of the sequence, that's going to automatically filter contacts coming through the sequence, because only the most interested contacts are going to follow every email and then respond to the call to action at the end. And actually, if someone isn't what I found is that the contacts who are the most the, the biggest joy to work with, the people who most need your help, the people who pay upfront, they're the ones who will read every email. So in some respects, you want to organize the sequence and cater to those people first. So I wouldn't worry too much. If you one worry by placing the call to action only at the end of the sequence is that people might miss it. But I would work on the assumption that your best prospects, assuming that you're authentic and compelling in your emails, your best prospects are going to read every email because the problem that you solve is pressing to them and they've got the money to solve it. The book I was thinking of by Gary Vaynerchuk was Jab, Jab, Hook, where he talks about having this strategy. He's talking about social media, but the jab is the nurture email, and what you're doing is you're setting up a big hook at the end of the process. I don't know if I fully like the boxing analogy, but it's the same idea. And rather than hooking constantly, we're saving the hook until it's been set up properly. So, there is a boxing analogy as well, I guess. We're at the end of this episode, so let's do a bit of a recap. The Lead Incubator is my latest model for structuring a compelling story-based email sequence to new prospects if you sell based on expertise. The Lead Incubator is designed to be both relentless in that an email goes out every day. It's relentless, but it's not manipulative. We're not using fake scarcity or other manipulative marketing tactics. We're being authentic. We're being the version of you that you would be if you were face-to-face with a person. We're trying to replicate that into an online digital environment. By sending an email every day, for my recommended duration is 12 days, it forces everyone to decide whether or not they like you, whether or not they trust you, and is the problem that you solve a problem that they immediately feel on a vibrational level? Is it a problem that they feel that they need to solve and that they feel that you're the right person? It might be a bit woo-woo to consider, but I do think there's a degree of vibration here. It's like when you hear somebody's marketing and it's clear that they have walked the path that you're on and that they understand the problem at hand better than you do. And that also that you like them and you feel that you can work with them. It generates this feeling that proceeding with the next step is the right thing to do. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create that vibration for the person who does resonate with you and share your values. We're trying to create this vibration so that when they ultimately book a sales call, there's already a match. There's already a good fit. The Lead Incubator also leverages the 3-plot structure from literature. We're leveraging stuff that works and has been proven to work for thousands of years. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just trying to leverage what works. And actually, what is often the case is that delaying the offer by a short period often increases your results, and it will increase your results across all of your marketing channels, anywhere that you're generating leads, whether that's face to face, whether that's LinkedIn, whether it's Google Ads, Facebook ads. By delaying the call to action slightly and following the 3-plot structure, by demonstrating your understanding of the problem, by sharing the revisions in your story, and then showcasing what's possible, that's going to get people excited about working with you. If you'd like to see my own Lead Incubator example, you can grab that at storyselling.biz/incubator. You can also find the Lead Incubator as a paperback book on Amazon if you just go to Amazon and search for Lead Incubator book. Finally, if you'd like to work with me to think about, well, what stories do you need to tell? How might you structure your own Lead Incubator sequence? Which of your stories fit into the structure? Then the starting point with that is to head to storyselling.biz/story-jumpstart. The Story Jumpstart process is a 2-hour call with me where I will listen to your story, I will document the stories that you tell me, and I'll pinpoint, based on your particular business, I think you should tell these stories up front. I think these stories will go into the initial email sequence. We'll pinpoint which stories you might also want to convert into social posts in order to attract new people into your world. So again, that's storyselling.biz/story-jumpstart. What else is going on at storyselling.biz? As I record this, it is the 30th of October, and it's a bit of a changing season at the moment. I spend a lot of time looking at the changing of the light. The hour has just changed, which means that we have lighter mornings, darker evenings, and really that change in both the weather and the lights gets me thinking about next year. I'm finding every year at the moment that I'm thinking about next year a little bit earlier and really trying to plan my year in terms of 6-week increments. I think about the year in terms of being in both quarters, with each quarter split into 2. And for me, each quarter starts at the solstice. So the year for me starts on the 21st of December. And then I plan, the first 6-week period runs until the 1st of February. After that, it's the 1st of February to the spring equinox. And that's how I think about the year, because it allows you to, plan your year in terms of 90-day periods, but also to break it down into a slightly smaller, so you've got 2 6-week periods within each 90-day period, but also to match it to the changing seasons. And I find that quite, in terms of flow and how I think about things, I found that quite helpful. The other thing I'm working on at the moment is launching a podcast as a service, which is currently called Podcast Producer. So if you sell based on expertise, if you've been told that you've got great stories and you need to start a podcast, but you find the whole thing intimidating, you don't know how to get started, you aren't sure about the tech, you just don't really like the idea of talking to a microphone for 30 minutes or so, you aren't sure what to say and what not to say, then Podcast Producer is going to help out, because what we'll do is you'll speak to me in dialogue. I will mostly be edited out of the episodes, but we'll record the episodes in dialogue. I will help you plan the episodes. We'll make sure that you have your stories in the episodes to illustrate the points that you're making. And it'll be done in conversation. Once you published each episode, we'll also convert each episode into a transcript. We'll convert each episode into an email, into promotional emails, into social posts, in order to leverage the content. What you'll find over time is that once you've got a bank of episodes, you'll be able to look at converting the transcripts of your episodes into a book or into multiple lead magnets, again, to build momentum, to build a bigger audience, to attract more people into your world. There's no sales page at the moment, but if you're interested in that, head to storyselling.biz, go to the contact page, reach out to me, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, I would just like to say thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.